Welcome to this presentation regarding Australian direct order suppliers and how they protect you in the market. It's ordering from factories, not from brand manufacturers. And a lot of this will be explained through the series of slides. Now, this is homemade. This is just simply stating some facts. And so what I'm wanting to do is really explain what the differences are, and a lot of the marketplace doesn't understand some of these differences. So forgive me if you do already understand them, but I just would like to go from the 101 basics. So what will the presentation cover? It's going to cover what is an international versus a supply by a direct ordering, and there is differences, in fact quite a few. So why multinational subsidiaries and distributors are actually similar. A lot of distributors state that they're direct ordering. They're not really. A lot of them have agencies on an existing brand where there is existing stock, not necessarily made to order. So the stock, the QA, everything has differences in regards to a direct order versus the ordering done through subsidiaries internationally. So international supply chains versus Australian direct ordering, and logistical differences, yet there is overlapping of supply chains. Stock levels in normal business between the two types of businesses, and then the stock levels if there's differences as far as the supply chain when interruption occurs, and we've had quite a few of those lately. Examples of strength with direct ordering on the overseas factories, and then who handles global emergency resupply the best during and after. So let's just take an LMA, and this is a good example with regards to really where the factories are, where the manufacturing is, and what's understood as distributor versus direct ordering. So we're used to having the sales organisations in Australia. There's the multinationals, and then there's direct ordering. Now, a lot of people think direct ordering, as I've said before, is the distributors. It's not. A distributor will buy a known brand. Now, that means that the product is already manufactured and already sitting in a warehouse. Now, there may be some differences, but 90% of the time, it's already stock existing. Therefore, all it is in somebody else's control as far as what's released into Australia, particularly when there's problems globally. You have the licensed manufacturer, which could be the multinational themselves, usually back in their home country, sometimes in Australia. And then you've got the local direct order supply who can have the licensed manufacturing as far as Australia goes, or maybe in a partnership, as happens also up in China, where there's partnerships between the local direct ordering company and the Chinese manufacturing. Then you've got a whole tribe of manufacturers. Now, these are all linked to the licensed manufacturers as far as the ones they're wanting to link to. It's all above board, it's all regulated, there's all QR controls, international standards met, etc., to get this registration through from licensed manufacturer down to the factory. And when we say this, what we're talking about is really being able to link from the licensed manufacturers down to these manufacturers down here. And so what we're talking about is shared manufacturers. And so you're dealing with, in the blue, the licensed manufacturing, and in the green, direct ordering. And you'll see that there is crossover. And during COVID, this happened quite often. And the other side of it is a lot of people in Australia may think they're buying a product. And I'll give you a brief example. There's one company in Europe who buy from the same factory as others in China. It goes unsterilised into Europe. It is re-sterilised, packaged, and the percentage of local content means that it can be registered in that country's location. So on the packaging it says made in the country. As far as the user goes, they think it's made in that country. It's actually made in China and then shipped to that country. So what you have is marketed as a home country product in blue. So there's super warehousing and just-in-time stock into Australia. And that's distributors as well as multinationals. Then you've got full production runs ordered from direct suppliers in Australia because there's no other brand, so it has to be made just for that manufacturer. And so they get the full production runs from overseas into Australia with their local branding, and they have good stock holdings. Let's very quickly just go through the international operations. A lot of you already know this. Basically, you may have a factory in China, as well as other locations, and you'll see that in a second. Let's say it's the west coast of the US is where a multinational might have their super warehousing. So it's shipped across to the super warehousing that will then distribute around the world. But Australia, of course, gets its shipment. You have the same with European super warehousing. You have the same with Asian super warehousing. You'll also notice that there's payment going out of Australia from these multinationals. There is double or triple, firstly, emissions due to the distance of freight, and secondly, handling and freight. Up to 7 stages on a double freighting. And that's, you're talking about trains, you're talking about trucks, you're talking about shipment, either air or sea. It is a plethora of different handlers. Basically in Australia, when you are buying from a super warehouse, you're buying trickle feed into Australia, and they're fast into back order. In a crisis and after, there's allocated volumes only by head office priority. There's very little say in Australia. There can be factories over in South America supplying, say, the West Coast. There can be also factories in either Middle East or Africa also supplying the West Coast, but they can also be supplying Europe. But Europe can also get it from the Eastern Bloc countries, and we've just seen some recent problems as far as supply there. And then, of course, India. So can supply, say, Europe and or Asia super warehousing. So in the end, there's a fairly complex supply chain and a lot of handling and a lot of freight. For a direct order with the full manufacturing runs, could be from any of these countries, direct supply. So what we're talking about is straight from the factories into Australia, full production runs and or more. So you can basically have a minimum order quantity, say of 10,000 of a certain item. If there's a global shortage, we can up that to 20,000, 30,000. We can do several containers. It just depends what's required. Full production runs into Australia, minimum of 12 weeks, average 16 weeks held. Australia has an absolute control of the ordering, and existing stock users is held aside when the market goes on backorder. So if there's a global backorder issue, we physically hold stock aside for our existing users. Any excess can then be picked up by the marketplace, and you'll see examples of that coming up. And payment remains in Australia, and basically it gets reinvested, as happens with the company I'm in. Normal ordering is direct versus subsidiary. Basically what I'm going to show you here is really the difference in scale. So you'll see here the purple dots are the resupplies, say 2,000 of each line. Down below in the blue, what you will see is the sales for or purchases from the clients, and in red you'll see there is the stocks. So basically we get to a stock level, say here in July, delivery comes in August, up goes the stock. Purchases drain the stock, resupply, drain the stock, resupply. Then what happens, sorry, I'm just trying to get the pen working, or not working in this case, is this. And here's the difference in scale. Now, there's no problem here. You'll see the purchases in the blue are the same figures. The importing is trickle feed that matches the purchases. There's no problem. There's no back order, subsidiary stock. But you'll see there the difference is the scale. So we've got basically a scale here with our reordering, but here's the reordering down here. You'll see on the right-hand side of the page is the internationals. That's their stock holding in red. On the left is the red for a direct order. When we're talking about an issue, and what we're talking about here, and let me just get both of these up, is what we're talking about here is, you'll see here again, In purple is supply, but this is when supply has stopped for whatever reason for a number of 3 months, and it could be that, you know, when it says 3 months there, it could be anywhere from 12 weeks to 16 weeks. It just depends. You'll see here exactly the same. What you'll see is the stock holdings, the sales figures are there, and that's the normal ones that are trickled. And here we go. The stock goes down, but we get a resupply of 2,000 again. Up it goes. 2,000, and the thing is though, with the stock levels and with the sales, there's no back orders. Over here with the international supply with trickle feed, firstly there's not much stock to begin with. So when it goes down and out of stock for exactly the same period, you'll see the stock levels go down as the purchases come in, and then it's on zero. And showing there 4 weeks, but it could be up to 8 weeks. And that could finish actually down here. It just depends on usage. It doesn't take much to go in back order here to here. You could be anywhere from as far as this requirement. Let me just get out of this highlighter again. You'll see there the difference in stock levels. Zero import for 12 to 16 weeks, but the client could be 8 to 12 weeks in back order with zero stock, where they're having to source from other manufacturers. Over here on the left hand side, you'll see that's not an issue. Okay, the other side of it is coming out of back orders, and it can take longer, firstly because of logistics of double freighting or triple freighting in some cases, and of course then the global priorities. If you're a multinational, Australia is a very small percentage of your turnover. If you've got major countries after big demands, Australia may not necessarily get much stock. Here's an example of an existing product in Australia in blue for one client. Now we sell to a lot of clients, so we have a lot of backup stock. What happened was that they actually have multiple suppliers, the client. The trickle feed runs out. Direct order supply from existing stock, we had enough. Other than our other clients, we held everything else aside for our major clients. But this client, we had enough to supply them. 10,000 of an item. It kept one state out of real trouble. And then we had a follow-up on the next delivery. Nobody was in back order, either our existing clients or this client, even though they're existing, with their increased usage. So we're able to save them. So some other examples, syringes in the vaccine peak demand. We saved one state, topped up another for their normal usage because everything was drained across to the vaccine. We're not a major supplier, and if we were, we could have saved other states in emergency supply. We certainly did order more stock in and actually help some other states out, but really, had we had more supply, we could have had some major saving going on for some of the states with their usage, and also for the vaccines. The Italian sterilisation issue that a lot of you will remember from last year, 156 manufacturers were affected from the Italian sterilisation issue. In our portfolios, we supported 2 states with urgent stock and with regular follow-up, and with existing clients not going on back order. We could carry the stock requirements, and we supported for 4 months. National distributors came after the hospitals, and we were able to supply several of them for urgent supply. Again, we upped our manufacturing orders, and some of them were existing orders that we could just simply bump up and get extra stock out of those manufacturers. In 2018, for one state, we kept them going for 10 months with non-tender stock of suction catheters. And we were able to do that just through direct ordering straight up and then constant supply. So when a global potential occurs, and there's been one just recently with regards to a whole lot of portfolios and a whole lot of products, what can a direct order supplier do? So international suppliers, if it's a global priority, this is what could happen, and what has happened in the past. Global priority in the warehouses may bypass Australia. Mid-term trickle feed only starts off when back order, and even if back orders remain. And remember, there's priorities coming from head office that could overrule Australian demand. Long term, they remain on trickle feed with 4 to 6 weeks of stock in Australia. Direct orders and supply can order any volumes for market demands. Maybe we have orders already in place. We can go from the minimum order quantities to multiple containers. So if we have a few states coming to us for stock, we can actually increase our existing orders and then place new orders very quickly. Forward ordering of these volumes with dates as well as possible. And that can actually, if we do know that there's a major problem coming up, we can give some insurance for the users that we'll be able to manufacture. We won't have anybody else going priority over us. And direct order controls the volumes for Australia. And direct ordering also offers a definite production run and shipping dates. So whilst we won't give, in 3 or 4 months' time the exact date it's going to be manufactured, we can say in August we can get this requirement for you manufactured and then shipped, and it will arrive, in September. So that's the sort of thing that can be done. So the difference: subsidiaries of multinationals and Australian distributors of overseas brands access existing warehousing. You've heard it several times from me now. They receive regular trickle feed of stock for global demands. M Devices have our own design, local Chinese partners, and branding for product, and must order full manufacturing runs carrying minimum order quantities. Our brand is the only brand that's made in these factories, therefore we have to order minimum quantities or beyond, depending on the different sizes of product, etc. So there might be a slower product as far as purchases go, but we still have to do a minimum order quantity. Now, we do have negotiation where we can get smaller minimum order quantities to suit Australia. M Devices also has minimum order quantities for each item that could carry anywhere from a few months to many months of average turnover in Australia. Therefore, we carry in stock a minimum of 3 to several months of stock at any given time for any item. So I hope you enjoyed that presentation. I hope it sort of enlightened you. We are more than open to discussion with you if you have any questions. Thank you very much.